Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Chef Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And Dr. Lopkin, as we were prepping for the show, today's show, we may have an area, and it doesn't happen often, but it's good that we do, because that's what makes a good show a good show. The Iran deal, I called it monumental as we were prepping, not so much for the doctor. Enlighten us.
What I called it can't be repeated on broadcast as we go. I still, even after all these years, revert to FCC mode when we're recording.
I hear you.
This was a joke. Basically, what we got in this deal is the status quo from where we were before we started bombing. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be reopened. They did not give up any of their nuclear ambitions. They're still killing their own people. We spent a ton of money on weapons, missiles, all of this, and got nothing for it.
Here's where I think your points are well taken and certainly make more than enough sense. I'm not that hung up on the deal. I think, sometimes you get used to things and you take things for granted. Iran was right there, right about to be a nuclear power. They were effing around with, obviously, all their neighbors, supporting terror groups like Hezbollah, among others, the Houthis, whatever the list goes on. And now you have a neutered Iran, okay? Yes. Did we get their nuclear material? No, but good luck finding it underground. I think they have very little or any capabilities to F with Israel, F with the Gulf states. And my prediction is that in a not too distant future, there will be a revolution, because their whole regime was based on terror, power, the illusion of power, and that is all bye-bye.
Now, see, I have to disagree with you. They're going to be able to rebuild fairly quickly because their weapons, they don't have sophisticated missiles like we do that take millions of dollars and years to rebuild. They're generating cheap drones that they can rebuild quickly, cheaply. Just over the weekend, they were touting their tight relationship with Russia and China. You think that Russia and China aren't going to be sending them the material they need?
Okay, let me interject one thing about that statement. China, obviously a real power, second biggest power in the world. Russia's a shadow of what they were even 5 years, 10 years ago. Would you agree with that?
Russia's a shadow of its former self, but you can't count it out. There are still, according to the UK, which actually blew up one of Russia's shadow ships over the weekend, there are still at least 700 ships in Russia's shadow fleet selling oil that is supposed to be sanctioned. So Russia still has money coming in because of that. Would not surprise me that they're the ones showing Iran how to get around the sanctions.
I don't know, nothing would surprise me, especially when you look at. Go ahead.
The Iranian refugees and dissidents are up in arms over this because there is nothing in the deal that is going to keep the Iranian regime from killing off its opponents. And they were doing that even while we were bombing them.
No, obviously, that's why you're the doctor. You have some good points. I still stand behind my assertion is that they are a shadow of what they were. Can they rebuild? Well, yeah, what the $6 million, he was rebuilt. $6 million man was rebuilt.
Wow, that's dating us.
Dating me. I didn't think you'd know what that was. But anyway, that is life. Let's just say this. We'll see how it plays out, correct?
We will see how it plays out. I'm actually going to go out on a limb and say we're going to end up bombing Iran in 2027. I don't think Trump is going to do anything until after the midterms. I think that's the real reason he was pushing for the deal, because now that we've stopped the bombing and the Strait of Hormuz is going to be open, inflation's going to drop. Things are going to look much better on the home front for the midterms. After the midterms, I think Iran is already going to have gone back to where they were. I think Iran has the perfect out in this, because the deal is contingent on Israel and Hezbollah stopping their war, and neither side has agreed to it.
I'm going to say that's that's like a linchpin, like saying Keith Richards will stop partying.
Right.
Not going to happen. But I like your analysis as always, because I actually think that's a good play. How do you like that? Because, and that's the next item on our agenda. I think that if there's any chance of the Democrats ever getting power again, we could be in deep trouble. And you look at that, you say, why? Oh, come on, politics. You look at the WFC event at on the White House lawn.
UFC.
Sorry, UFC. And I didn't watch it. I watched clips of it, obviously, on YouTube, in preparation for this and for my own edification. But pro-America, but is it my cup of tea? No, but kind of cool. I'll give it that. Better than I thought. And then you looked at the psycho convention, the anti UFC, and these people, like, first of all, it's Retread City, Bette Midler. I don't even know when the last time I saw her. I think Johnny Carson's send-off was the last time she was relevant. That's like 91 or something, right? The Democratic parties I call it the psychoization of the Democratic Party. They are not well.
No, I don't think they are. And I saw on social media a number of folks from the left yelling about how dare they put this cage up on the White House lawn. Take a look at some of the events that Biden hosted at the White House. Half-naked men with fake boobs wandering off. It was an absolute bizarro world under Biden.
Real quick, as I agree with 100%. I'll even add that the Christmas, and Jill put that together, the Christmas greetings, which was something between an acid trip and a gay pride rally. I don't know which one's more, weighed each way, but it was very embarrassing. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and they put up the cage. This is a temporary structure. Guess what? It's already, if it's not off the lawn already, it's being taken down as we speak, because it was set up for one event. Get over it.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's the event, and that's obvious, of course. I think we're getting into a point, and it's kind of dangerous. The far left, the Dems, because there's not a lot of moderates left, are increasingly not just anti-Trump. That's like a la 2016, 2018. I think they're drifting towards being anti-American culture. I don't think that's too far off.
I don't think it's too far off, but I don't think this had so much to do with that. I mean, yes, there was obviously Trump derangement syndrome in play, but I think,
well, that's a constant.
Yes, but I think the backlash to this particular event goes more to the anti-masculinity that the Democrats have been so actively pursuing for at least a decade now. Anything that is masculine is bad. You know, it started in the 90s when they were pushing metrosexuals. And then
yes, you're right.
Just a few years ago, there was this whole big thing. Oh, if you're involved in working out, it's like, well, that's misogynistic. You're a male chauvinist. It's like, really? I know more women that work out than I do men. But
and it's interesting point about women or let's say young girls is that when I was in high school back in the Jurassic era, like women's sports was kind of like, it was all cutesy. You do it. Women work out as much as men, and they get it done, you know, on either the basketball court or in the field. So they're seriously into you being in shape and performing well in sports. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy.
Yes, they are. And I mean, let's face it, there are very successful women MMA fighters, women boxers. You've got the WNBA. I'd love to see any of these Democrats bitching about masculinity go head to head with any of these women.
Well, I would agree. And I think there's no one in their party, I mean, males in their party that could play in the WNBA. Or maybe even like a high school girls field hockey team. It's getting that bad, but it's still, again, to my point, masculinity, the cowboy, is it all our culture? No, but it's a part of our culture, John Wayne. But increasingly I see you can have any kind of celebration, any kind of activity, and who's going to reign on it? The Democrats.
Oh, yes. We just saw the State Fair, the America State Fair concert to celebrate America's 250th. They ended up canceling this because more than half of the acts canceled out because they were under pressure from the left not to appear at a Trump-supported event. This is America's birthday. It's got nothing to do with Trump.
Yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of it as we get close. We're very close right now to the 250, because I think you're going to have things like, more protests and alternative, we'll call it, events. But we'll see how that plays out. I think it's interesting, but I also find it fascinating, the boomers. Woodstock is over 60 years ago. These people keep hanging on to Arlo Guthrie. I mean, just retire, chill out, smoke a joint, and shut up.
Yeah, I think the big turning point with the boomer generation actually started to take place with the millennials. Because the boomer generation, up until that point, was the largest single generation in American history.
Yep.
They had the power of numbers. They had the power of the pocketbook. And then the millennials came around, and there were more millennials than there were boomers. And as time goes on, we're obviously losing boomers because as you age, but now they don't have the power they used to have. And I think this is a very sad attempt to try to regain their youth.
Actually, Dr. Lopkin, brilliant insight. Absolutely. Because I think the world revolved. I mean, the day they were born to when they grew up, the world centered around boomers. Music, entertainment, culture. And now, not anymore. So let's kind of rekindle that. I think it's a great analysis. Do you agree with my assertion on that?
I do. And I think, people don't realize just how much the world revolved around the boomers. I mean, my generation is literally called Gen X because we were so forgotten about that they didn't even want to bother naming the generation. That was how the name of Gen X came about, because everything was focused on the boomers. And now that it's not anymore, I think they're desperately trying to hang on to relevance.
Yeah, I also think it's a generation that can't come to grips with getting older. You see it in entertainers, Aerosmith, Stones, God forbid, Bette Midler. What, I don't know what she was even doing, but they can't, like other generations, like my father's generation. They sat on the porch, had some iced tea, and hung out. No, they still think they're living back at Woodstock. The party never ended.
I mean,
except for the little joint pain.
Right. The party didn't end, but they also didn't really hold on as times were changing. I mean, particularly I'm thinking of the musicians, because the music industry now bears no resemblance to the music industry the boomers knew. Performers in the boomer age, sure, they toured, but they got their money off of record sales. They got
no doubt. The exact opposite.
And now it's the tours that make the money, but most of them are too old to get a lot of dates in. They never really understood. I mean, if you remember, Neil Young made this big deal. Oh, I'm going to pull my music off of Spotify because they're supporting Joe Rogan. And guess what? His music went back on Spotify because nobody noticed or cared.
I agree. I think, like anything else, you go out gracefully. Half of them can't sing. It's really a sad spectacle. Like, politics aside, I used to like, Neil Young. I liked a lot of his music. Then you see someone like a shadow of themselves, like, just tour a nursing home and be done with it, dude. And the other one is Bruce Springsteen. He's the apex of an embarrassment. I mean, it's just unbelievable. He looks like that bisexual female soccer star. Forgot her name. It's just unbelievable. Yeah. So it is a thing. Getting back to the real point is, I think they're trying to stay. Boomers never got over not being in the limelight, and they're trying to rekindle that. And I also think it's a big thing about, as they get older and closer to the end, to quote the Doors, that they are trying to rebuff the inevitable and rekindle what's left of their apparent youth.
Yeah, I think they are. And, I mean, we've been talking a lot about the musicians and stuff, but the same thing goes for our politicians. Look at Chuck Schumer. Look at Nancy Pelosi. They're desperately hanging on to relevance, basically kowtowing to the squad because they're afraid of being cast aside.
Absolutely correct. And something, it's kind of weird how I guess I would consider Chuck Schumer a boomer. I believe so. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Schumer's
definitely a boomer.
And the point is, in previous generations, with age comes wisdom and courage. It's the opposite for boomers. You think someone like Chuck Schumer, what do you got to lose? You're, 80-something years old. Have some conviction, have some ho-hos, but he's so into hanging on to what he has. That was a song in the 60s, by the way, as opposed to challenging the threats to his own party and Americans to some degree.
Yeah, it really is sad, because we literally went from the greatest generation to the boomers, who have now turned out to be such a disappointment as they age.
I think they were always a disappointment. Hunter S. Thompson wrote a book, A Generation of Swine. And essentially, to paraphrase the boomers, it's, love, 1960, whatever, into 70, love and free love and groovy, share the wealth. They became the biggest bloodsuckers on Wall Street in the history of humanity. There you go. So did they ever have
That's
convictions?
true. I mean, the hippies became Wall Street in the 1980s.
There you go. And they would take a company, and by the time they're done with it, and now they probably want to find, figuratively, not literally, Jesus. So after sucking the blood out of America and having no morals, now they're finding their final causes.
I think that pretty well
done
sums
by
that
Mr.
up.
Sherman. You got to give me
Yes.
credit for that one,
Yes.
Doctor. Well, that concludes another edition of Carnivore Radio.
Whoa, no. You're jumping the gun there.
Uh-oh. It happens when you're sick.
We did not discuss, talking about Wall Street, the SpaceX IPO.
I am sorry. That's what happens when you've been sick for 2 weeks. I apologize, Dr.
That's
Lopkin.
okay. This is important, not just because of the IPO, but because of the reaction that the left have had. And if there's any of our listeners that actually missed what happened, this was the largest IPO in history. And the most important part of it is not that Elon Musk became a trillionaire, not that the brand new newly public company is now the fourth largest company in the world by market cap. All of that is interesting. But what the real news of this is that 4,400 people on Friday, when this went public, became millionaires and multimillionaires. And we're not
including as someone that was working for the organization, I don't know, for the last 10 years, like a janitor,
right. We're
maintenance person, a millionaire.
We're not talking about Wall Street financiers making that money. We're talking about engineers. We're talking about janitorial. We're talking about welders and mechanics. Folks that actually showed up every day, put the work in, and got their reward. 4,400 millionaires and multimillionaires, and the left went crazy. They're talking about instituting new wealth taxes. They want to raise the cap on who has to pay for Social Security, even though these folks aren't going to be collecting it, because they want the government's share of this money, because nobody earns money in America. It all belongs to the government, according to the left.
That actually is true from their perspective, because if you never worked a day in your life, you never know what work is. And I find it very interesting, people that have been on the dole forever, like Pocahontas, and others. Pocahontas, let's talk about her first, makes about 200 grand a year, really good salary. And now she's worth like almost 15 mil. Gee, I wonder what parallel universe that happens in. And then you have AOC, the economist from Boston University, also getting on the bandwagon, another intellectual juggernaut. But it's from our initial discussion. You're looking at the transformation of the Democratic Party into left of center to full-blown socialist / communist. What else is there? We used to applaud. We talked about it in the prep. That show on the History Channel, The Men Who Built America. Were they all nice guys? Were they all holding hands? No. But guess what? They made a superpower, didn't they?
And you know what? The Men That Built America is a fantastic example, because that was one of a number of series that the History Channel aired. Currently, you can find them all on Hulu if you want to take a look. But there was The Men That Built America. There was The Cars That Built America. The Food That Built America. And these series told the stories of everybody from the folks building the highways and infrastructure to folks like Chef Boyardee that made a food empire. And what they all had in common was that 90% of these folks started with nothing. They weren't millionaires that said, I'm going to take my share. No, these folks started with nothing, built their fortunes, built America, and then other people benefited from what they created. Well, that's the same thing that Musk just did. Musk made his money as co-founder of PayPal. He made his money when they sold to eBay, millions of dollars, and he invested that in other ideas. Tesla, SpaceX, The Boring Company, X. There's a couple of other companies in there that he's been involved with. And when I posted that on social media, someone went, oh, but SpaceX and Tesla needed government bailouts. It's like, well, no, the government invested in these companies. Why? Because they wanted the technology to flourish. The country got just as much out of the investments in those companies as Elon Musk did.
100%. And speaking of, some of his or major part of his efforts is Tesla. They're now in the process of reinventing electric transportation. In other words, taking it to another level that no one even compete. Who does that benefit? Yes, Elon Musk, the company. But how about America? Duh.
Right. And take a look. The left is all gung-ho about electric cars. There was no electric car industry before Elon Musk showed it could be done. There were a couple of experiments. There was a couple of failed cars, but nobody took the bull by the horns and said, yes, we can build new battery technology. We can build new charging stations. We can build the new cars. And once he showed how that was done, many of the electric cars that are on the road now and manufactured by other manufacturers license Tesla's charging stations and use their technology to do it.
And no question about it. And to your point, not to belabor a point, but before Musk, electric cars were playthings of the rich to show how they're green and blah, blah. But for practical transportation, they sucked until he reinvented it. And that we were just talking about the men who built America. I think I might write a letter to the History Channel. I want a part of the action. The people who destroyed America. And I think the first episode could be Elizabeth Warren and AOC. How do you like that one, Dr. Lopkin?
I think there's already a very similar series to that on Fox Nation, where they take a good look at what these folks have been doing to America.
I want like it always is. I'm always one step behind. Good idea, but one step behind. Well, Dr. Lopkin, thank you for correcting my malfeasance. But when you're under the weather, sometimes you don't think as clearly as you could. But our listeners can certainly think clearly and contribute to the show, can't they?
Yes, they can. We want to hear what you have to say about all of this. Go to xvadio.com/connect. Send us a message. You can also message us through the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Carnivore Radio wherever you listen to it. And of course, you can find every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Well, Doctor, you earned your PhD on this episode. As always, I'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.